I remember back when we were first getting started, and my grandfather, I remember he was reading a book one day and showed it to me. It was by an old missionary statesman, E. Stanley Jones. And he had written in the book that a Christian was someone who cared. And my grandfather had written in a large marking pen, and who does something about it. When we started out with this organization, it wasn't like there was a defining moment when we said, okay, today, I mean, legally VSI is born kind of thing. VSI, it was a concept. It was an idea that was born out of our experiences when Susan and I were in Tanzania. We had fled from the war in Congo, and when we got there to Tanzania, we discovered a world that was very different from the Africa that we had known. The Congo that I knew was a Congo where my grandparents had been missionaries, and their understanding of the mission of the church was very broad. And as a result, when I came there, there were not only churches, but there were schools, there were clinics, there were community development projects. That was all a part of what the work of the church was, as my grandfather understood it and as he practiced it. When I got to Tanzania, I suddenly entered into a new world in which I was asked to teach in a Bible school, but none of my students had gone beyond the 7th grade. My wife was teaching the wives of my students. Half of those women couldn't read and write. And this was a different world. This was a world where people didn't get a chance to go to school. This was a world where if you had medical needs, there wasn't anybody to take care of them. I had to be a part of changing that. And so, did. We worked with people there in the village and built that first school and got those kids to get a chance to get an education. And then there came the time when the war was essentially over, and it was time when Susan and I could go back home to Congo. And that was a very defining moment when we looked at it and realized we could go back to this place where we had worked, where we had met, where my grandparents had been missionaries. We could go back there. But to turn our backs on this situation that we had found in Tanzania, these students that we had worked with, to see as they were graduating, and to realize this problem wasn't just in their village. This problem was in villages all over that country. A country of 35 million people, and only 10,000 kids finished high school that year. It just seemed wrong. And so the idea was born, Susan and some of our students getting together, let's work on putting together an organization whose job would be to make sure that one day every kid got a chance to go to school. If you're going to work in a country, you need to go and meet with the leaders of that country. And so I did go and actually meet with the Minister of Education. And when I look back on it now, he probably thought I was quite naive and a little bit crazy. But I sat down with him and I said, as I see it, if I can have 20 years to work in your country, if God would give me 20 years to work, I'll aim to leave 56 schools in this country. And according to the plan, I said, we'll start the first year. It'll take a year to build the first school, and it'll open in 2006. And then in 2006, we'll open a second one. And 2007, we'll work on the basically, after 5 years, I was aiming to have 5 schools. Eventually, we would ramp up and move at a pace of doing 2 a year. So what we had as our vision of what was possible, that seemed at that time, to anybody looking at it objectively, it was ambitious. I mean, we weren't going off to Africa to try and do something small. We wanted to do what we saw as ambitious. And I presented what I thought was an ambitious program to the Minister of Education. But what God intended to do was obviously so much bigger. The idea was that in the first year we would get a school built. And we'd have 4 classrooms, and we'd aim to have 160 kids get a chance to start getting an education. Wanted to have 80 of them to be girls. It was our dream, and in 2006 it would open. But things didn't go in the least the way we planned them there in the beginning. Godfrey and Emanuele, who were students of ours, they actually arrived in the village 2 months before I ever showed up. And they went around and traveled and spoke to the people in those 5 villages, held meetings with them. They told people about what it was like when we first came to their villages. And essentially what they told people was, if you're smart, you already make the bricks and get the stones ready and have it set up so that when he arrives, things can get going. And Godfrey and Emanuele met me at the airport in Dar es Salaam. We drove across the country, arrived there in the little village, and I knew that something remarkable was underway. Everywhere I went, there were all these, as we're driving in, there's all these people showing their thumbs up as we're coming in. And it wasn't at all what I expected. I expected to kind of arrive in the village and have to begin at zero and let people get to know me and then talk to them about a school. And I figured it would take months to get things going. And instead, had a meeting that first evening with all of the leaders in those villages. We had a wonderful meal together, and then they were eager to show me in the morning the land that they had picked out for this school and to show me all the bricks and the stones. And what I never could have imagined happened. In 70 days, those people worked. In 70 days, they built the school. In 70 days, we had school open and those first kids starting. It's absolutely crucial to have the community involved. I want them to be involved. I want these kids to be able to see that it's their fathers who are out there working to build those buildings. It's their whole family that's out there making bricks. They're hauling the stones. They're carrying the water. It changes who they are as people before they ever show up in the school. When a kid sees that his parents have worked, and this is not a Saturday afternoon project, this is months after months after months. When the kid himself has been out making those bricks, it makes a total difference than when that kid is in the classroom. That school belongs to the community, belongs to their parents. Those kids have invested themselves in it. That makes a difference than what they do with that education when they're in the classroom. The government takes all the straight A students, those are the kids who are chosen to get to go to secondary school, to start the 8th grade. We take everybody else. We take the B students, the C students, the D students. We take the F students. We take the kids who have no shoes. We take the orphans. We take everybody. But what they have seen, because they've been involved in making the bricks, their parents have been involved in doing all of this work. Something is then so different about them from the other kids who have had it handed to them. And so that's why after a couple of years, they have to take the same national exams that all the kids that got chosen in the government schools, they all take the same exams. And the amazing thing is everybody's asking the question, how is it that the kids who were the straight A students, how come it's only 40% of them that pass after 2 years? And we're getting a nearly 100% pass rate. All of our kids pass. It makes no logical sense. It makes no logical sense on paper, but it makes logical sense of what has changed inside of those kids because they want this education so badly. And so, yeah, part of it is from an investment standpoint that I want to get the biggest bang for the buck. And so that money that people are giving, I only want it to do the part that people in the village can't do, so that a little bit of money can go a long way. Part of it is that. But part of it is that I want to see this transformation in kids. I want to see the transformation in the whole village. We don't go into a single place without being invited. And so these people who are back here in America, who we've asked to pray, as Paul told us when he wrote the Colossians, pray that there are open doors. We ask people to pray that there will be open doors. And these open doors just keep coming. We get invited, we go, we meet with the community, we talk with them. And now, I'm not going to say that those people... I'm not going to say that in these villages that there are groups of Christians who get together and they decide to call us. I'm not. God doesn't always work through just Christian people. God works through all of his people. And what he's placing in the hearts of people is this immense desire for a better life for their kids. God is at work. In many of the villages, there are small churches that are there. And when I meet with all of the people, then afterwards I talk with the pastors and I say, look, when they're going to do the work in the village and people are going to get out there, make sure that you tell the people in your congregation to work harder. As Christian people, we need to work harder than anybody else. And so if in the village they're saying that everybody should go out and every person should aim to make 100 bricks, then you talk with your people in your church and tell them, and we're going to make 200. Be the people who push harder. Show that as Christian people, and then afterwards, it's not enough to build a building. We have to have kids who come to the school. And it's saying that I want those who are Christians in the village to be the first ones to say, we want to make sure that our kids go. We want to make sure that every girl gets to go to school. We want to make sure that there's the kid who's lost his parents. We want to make sure he gets to go. But then after that, we work with these teachers in the schools. We bring missionaries that are in there. And then it's the Spirit of God working through them. Yes, they're in the classroom teaching, but they are there to share their faith with their students. They're there to be for them when their kids have trouble. They're They're there to be a part of the life of that community, to bring light, to bring hope, to bring change, to share who they are and how important their faith in Christ is to them and their desire to transmit it to other people. No one could have imagined we'd be working that we'd have 16 schools open today, that we'd have 127 villages all working together on this huge endeavor. That's not something that any human being can claim credit for. That's something that God has done.